We'll call the meeting to order. Abby, can you take a roll call for us, please?
Oh, my goodness. What are we? Your commissioners, Commissioner Erickson,
Yes, I'm here.
Commissioner Lorge. Here. Commissioner Hoyt.
Here.
Commissioner Roberts.
Here.
And Interim President Legness.
Present. We have a quorum. If all those that are able to stand, if you could join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move we approve the agenda.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Election of officers, I would direct the commission to our agenda on page 3. It outlines that we need to elect several positions: a president, a vice president, secretary, treasurer, and assistant treasurer. I'll take them in that order, or I'll at least start with the president. It does say that the president and vice president cannot be the same person. The secretary, treasurer, and assistant treasurer may be held by the same commissioner, and the offices of secretary and assistant treasurer need not be held by a commissioner, so we could choose staff members for that. So we'll start with the president. Are there any nominations for president?
Make the nomination for Commissioner Erickson as president.
Right? Do you accept that?
I'll accept.
Are there any other nominations? I'm going to say it 3 times because I think that's the rule. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, all those in favor of Commissioner Erickson as president, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Same.
Congratulations. Did you want the gavel now, or did you want me to continue through the meeting?
I'll let you have this one.
Okay. The next item is the vice president.
Nominate Eric Langness.
I'll accept. Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. For secretary, next on the list, and I will note that the staff's requested action was to have this filled by city staff. Abby, was there a specific person that staff recommends?
I just will note for the record, currently in the current capacity, I am the assistant treasurer and the secretary, kind of helping fulfill the duties of the EDA. So you did nominate me last time as opposed to the executive director, which is the administrator. We don't have an administrator right now, so I don't want to say I would nominate myself, but it would be in line with what the duties are for this position.
I don't believe you could nominate yourself. It has to come from a member, but
Yes,
is
no,
it okay with you if we select you?
Yes, I think that that's very appropriate to have staff in those 2 roles. Or for the
Nominate
secretary you're asking for.
Abby Whitman.
Right? We have a nomination. Is there any discussion on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congrats, Abby. Treasurer is next. Are there any nominations for treasurer?
Treasurer.
I think the duties are relatively limited to signing documents on relatively rare occasion.
I am here to assist you too.
Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? All those in favor of Commissioner Hoyt as treasurer, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations. Number 5, assistant treasurer. Are there any nominations? I believe we could select Abby for this as well.
I nominate Abby Whitman as assistant treasurer.
Is there any discussion on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I believe we are through the agenda item of election of officers, and we're to open forum. This is an opportunity for the public to use a couple minutes and share with us their thoughts on any item on our agenda or pertinent to the business of the EDA. I don't see anyone in the audience. Is there anyone online, Abby?
No, we actually don't have that option available anymore in our public meetings.
All right, thank you. We'll move past the open forum and move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion on the consent agenda, or is there anyone that wishes to pull the minutes?
Probably need to abstain full of minutes from the January 13th meeting.
Same.
I will note, and this is, you can vote on minutes, even if you weren't in attendance at a meeting. You're only voting to say that you believe that the minutes are an accurate reflection, but if you feel more comfortable abstaining, you certainly can.
Yeah, I understand, but how about if you weren't on the commission at the time?
You certainly can still
Is that
vote.
still the same?
Yes.
President Langness, if I might just also add, by abstaining the two members that weren't present, then the vote would go with the majority, I believe. So that
Correct.
way,
The
because
majority
we
in
have,
attendance.
because we might have some quorum issues if you didn't participate at all from this. So I think abstaining would be the best if you didn't want to vote.
Is there any other discussion on the item to approve minutes? Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Is
I move we approve the minutes.
there a second? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carry, I'm sorry, abstain?
Abstain.
Motion carries. And we are on item number 8, presentation, Washington County EDA and open to business. Chris, are you presenting this for us tonight?
President Langness, members of the commission, just as a heads up, we have two separate presentations tonight, one from Chris Eng with Washington County CDA, and then also afterwards, one from Tyler Hilsebeck with Open to Business. They weren't on the agenda that way, I apologize, but just know that you have two different presentations tonight from our partners.
Understood, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Good evening. I do have a PowerPoint, Abby. Could you start that for me? And I think I can use this to scroll through it. I'll try to keep it high level and moving pretty quickly here, just to give you an overview, and please feel free to ask questions if you have any.
Oh, I grabbed the wrong one, excuse me.
Thank you, Abby. I do want to also mention that I did ask Commissioner Fran Muron to join me tonight, but he had a conflict, but he does give regards to the EDA and just wished he could be here tonight, so. All right, so back in 2016, the Washington County Board had talked quite a few meetings about the county's involvement in economic development. Why would the county get involved in economic development? Isn't that something the cities do? And the cities actually felt that, yep, it is something the cities do. In fact, the permits are issued at the city level. The planning and zoning is all done at the city level, but they wanted the county to be a partner with them and come alongside of them on economic development opportunities, to do some marketing countywide, to provide some resources to help the cities get projects done. And so that's when I was hired in 2016, and I've been coming to the EDA meeting since then. I'll talk a little bit about, can I use maybe Abby, yeah, okay, there it is. So when I first started back in 2016, I wanted to take a look at the data. What does the county show in terms of market values? If you look at the overall market values in the county, how much of it is commercial and industrial, and how much is residential and other agriculture, multifamily. Back in 2014, you'll notice that on the slide, 14% of the total market value in the county was commercial and industrial. If you look at 2021, we've actually gone down a little bit. So Washington County's commercial and industrial market values in 2021 are 10.43%, which is just even under the average for all of the counties listed. Hennepin County obviously is the highest at 19.22%, and Chisago County at the bottom was 6.87%. And I don't think that we're actually losing commercial industrial market values. What I see happening is that the housing is happening at a much faster pace than commercial and industrial is in the county. And I see that quite often. We see a lot of housing growth happening, and the commercial industrial is a little bit slower, not non-existent, but it's not going backwards. It's actually just that slice of the pie is just shrinking a little bit. And so we don't have as much commercial and industrial market values increasing as we do housing in the county. Abby, do you mind to go to the next slide? And why does that matter? This is a slide that talks about the cost of providing services. And so for every $1 that we collect in property taxes, a residential property uses about $1.16 in services. And this is based on a study, a national study with the American Farmland Trust. It's just the opposite for businesses. For every dollar that is collected for businesses, they only ask for about 29 cents in services. And why is that? Well, obviously businesses pay money to the schools, but the bus doesn't stop outside the business. Buses don't, or the businesses don't use parks. These are all services that are good and residents want them. But what I see happening is if with that slice of pie shrinking in commercial industrial market value, it gets more expensive because the housing doesn't quite pay for the services that they're asking for. Businesses certainly do. And that's why we're trying to actually grow more businesses here in the county and with the city as well. So, and that's when 2016, the county board said, yep, we want to be able to help the cities grow commercial industrial market values and add new jobs and tax base in the county. Abby, next slide, please. That should fill in, maybe not. It is not loading for some reason. My apologies, but what I wanted to talk about here is what does the CDA do? What do we actually provide to help cities? And the answer to that is we provide technical assistance, both in terms of my being able to help the city with development opportunities or with business opportunities. And we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about our assistance for small businesses later, and Tyler's going to talk about how we help with small businesses both on technical assistance and financing. But we also provide resources to the cities in terms of the pre-development finance fund that you just applied for a couple of meetings ago to do the planning in the Southwest Corridor. We've helped with some planning in your downtown area to study it, to look for redevelopment opportunities, and do we have enough adequate infrastructure to even serve if a new development were to come to downtown Forest Lake. We helped with the McCullough property. We helped with 123 acres with some wetland delineation and some ghost platting. And those are grants that the CDA provides to the cities to help you get those projects up and off the ground. Because at the end of the day, if something good happens in Forest Lake, it's good for the county as well. We also have a grant through the Environmental Protection Agency, and it's an EPA grant that can be used for phase 1, phase 2 investigations. So if you have a potential redevelopment site and you just don't know if there's any contamination on the site, we can cover the cost through that grant. It's 100% covered by the grant, no match required, to come in and look at a phase 1, phase 2, some soil testing. If there's a building that's going to be knocked down, we can also do lead and asbestos testing in that building before it comes down. And so those are some of the resources that we want to be able to provide to the cities to help you with development opportunities. That's countywide. I'm trying to have you in the next slide again. There it goes. Okay, some of it's going to load. And then also we want to be able to help you with marketing. We do with every year we have different opportunities through the Minnesota Commercial Realtors Association, where we go downtown Minneapolis and have a table, a booth set up where we talk to realtors and developers and builders and say, come on over and check out Washington County. We've got a lot of opportunities here. It's interesting to see that some of them are maybe even coming, from Illinois and Wisconsin, driving through Washington County to get over to the West Metro. And you get a long ways into the West Metro before you're able to find large chunks of land that are 20 minutes from the airport. And we've got those here in Washington County. So we just want to make sure that people are aware that we've got resources available, we've got land available, we've got really good communities to work with. So we're marketing whenever we have a chance at the Minnesota Commercial Realtors Association. We're a member of MNCAR is what the name of it is. And we have a database where all of the properties that are either for sale or for lease or available, both land and buildings in Washington County are on that database. And we don't keep that up. It's the commercial realtors that keep that database up. So if somebody was looking for a particular site, they could go to that MNCAR.org website and find land or buildings available in Washington County that's listed by the real estate agents. And this is the East Metro Development Summit. We're going to be doing this again in May. And we just talk about opportunities on the East Metro. So not only, the stuff that's happening in the West Metro, everybody's looking at Golden Valley and Rogers and Dayton for new development opportunities, but we think there's really good opportunities here in the East Side. We just want to make sure that that's on their radar. The pre-development finance fund I mentioned a little bit. We have helped you with a number of different projects. We've also done the King plant in Oakdale or in Oak Park Heights, for example, where that coal plant is going to be decommissioned in a couple of years. What is that? How many 23 acres going to be used for? Do we have a potential opportunity to repurpose that land into something that could be really cool? We've also worked with Cottage Grove, for example, on a 300-acre parcel that's owned by 3M. They're interested in selling it because it's excess land. What could that be used for? So we're doing some engineering study and a wetland delineation study to say, here's what it costs to get the utilities to that site. Here's what it will cost to develop that site. Now we can give that to a developer and say, here you go, take it. Run with that information, and there's no guesswork because we've already done the pre-engineering for you as part of that pre-development finance fund. All right, and I talked about the EPA grant already. And then lastly, I want to mention our partnership with the chambers. This is so important to us. We could not have made it through COVID without the chamber partnerships on Nanette and the other teams. There's 6 chambers that represent the county, and we meet every 2 weeks and talk about how do we work together to help our small businesses throughout the county. And the partnership now is growing a little bit more. Now we're including the schools, and we've been working with Mike Muron and Molly Bonnet from Forest Lake High School on the Career Launch Program, introducing them not only to the chambers, but to the businesses in the community so that when they want to grow their curriculum, they've got business input to say, here's what we're going to be looking for in the next 5 years or 10 years. And that curriculum sometimes takes a little bit longer to put in place, but if the businesses are talking to the schools and there's open communication and networking opportunities that we can bring to the table, that's a really good role for us as a connector. And then one more thing I want to mention briefly, and then I'll let Tyler talk a little bit about the Open to Business program. Our emphasis really has been on small business development here in Washington County, and the reason for that is 95% of all of our businesses in the county have fewer than 50 employees. 95%. 86% of all of our businesses have fewer than 20 employees. And so it's really important to us to help that small business economy grow here and be successful here. And one more statistic that I want to share with you is that we have about 18,000 non-employer businesses. These are sole proprietors that are in the county. And if each one of those businesses just added one job, that's 18,000 new jobs in the county. So we brought together a partnership with the Metropolitan Consortium of Community Developers that Tyler works for. The CDA pays for that service for the entire county that we can now offer the Open to Business program. It's a service that we cover and it's free to the businesses. So Tyler will sit down with you and provide technical assistance, and they also have loan programs that they can come in and do some gap financing. So for example, if a bank says we can only get to this far and there's still just a little bit more room to go to get started, the Open to Business program can come in and fill that gap and get that business started. And I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tyler, and then feel free to ask questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today about the Open to Business program, which is a program of the Metropolitan Consortium of Community Developers. It's a 501c3 nonprofit based in Minneapolis, and we started, as Chris mentioned, work here in Washington County in 2017, so we're getting on 8 years already. So with that, we can get going. MCCD, as Chris mentioned, is a nonprofit, and we have we're a group of about 20 employees, and it's kind of between economic development and affordable housing initiatives. And so our business advising team is about 6 advisors, and we're pretty much geographically based through these service contracts with the counties and some cities. We go and we provide some technical assistance to small businesses, which I'll jump into in a little bit. We are a community development financial institution, and that's a classification from the U.S. Treasury. And so basically it's to help finance low wealth individuals, find financing individuals that can't go into a bank, and get a loan. And so we provide what we call non-traditional financing. So I'll get to that into that in a little bit, but we don't do the same, we do underwriting of loans, but we don't have the same parameters that a regulated bank might have. So our program areas are broken up into 4 kind of main areas: business development, which is the Open to Business program that I run; lending, which is also under the umbrella of Open to Business. We also have an advocacy and field building team. So we've got a registered lobbyist on the staff that goes and advocates and gets funding for our consortium members. Our consortium is about 35 affordable housing and economic development nonprofits, and they're all members, and we advocate for state dollars, for example, economic development grants such as the DEED Small Business Development Grant that nonprofits throughout the state can get. So we work with state senators and state representatives to help get those bills passed to support the ecosystem that we're in. And so we also work in affordable housing dollars too, to get affordable housing bills passed on the state level as well. And so we've got a team of about three members that are in our policy team. And then finally, leadership development. That's where we match mentors and mentees up with community development professionals and early stage professionals as well. And so, next slide. So the technical advisory that I do in Washington County is predominantly one-on-one technical advisory with small business owners. And so about half the small business owners that I see are either in that pre-startup or startup territory. They've got a really great idea. They've been in the industry, for a while. They really know the X's and O's of the specific good or service that they're selling, but they don't really have the business expertise, and they don't have the framework of, oh, do I need to be in this, zoning? Is it zoned correctly? How do I get financing? How do I write a business plan? And all of that. And that's where we come in and we meet with the entrepreneurs one-on-one. As Chris mentioned, it's free through our partnership with the county, and so we're very appreciative of that relationship. And then you can see some of the other stuff that we do in addition to the one-on-one training. We do some webinars, we do some group learning opportunities. Next week, Tuesday, we have a hybrid learning session about what lending is and how you go about applying for a small business loan. And so we make that available to all the clients that we serve. It doesn't matter how big the business is, but I would say most of the businesses that we meet with are kind of in line with what Chris mentioned before. 95% of the businesses that I meet with are less than 10 employees. So we do get, the larger businesses on a, kind of a one-off basis, but mostly this is small businesses that are either early stage or they're experience their first opportunity to grow, maybe add some employees, maybe buy some real estate, add some equipment, and grow their business into that next stage. There's no pre-qualification. It's open to any entrepreneur. The only kind of caveats that we have is that we don't help like investment real estate. If you're buying a fourplex to rent out, that's not really what we do. We don't do nonprofit advising either. We'll make referrals, but we're for-profit businesses here in Forest Lake in Washington County. Next slide, please. So technical advisory is a pretty broad brush, and so we do see a lot of different, issues that are facing entrepreneurs. So a lot of it is based on what's going on in the economy, interest rates, employee retention, common themes that we see. But for the most part, it's a lot of folks that come in and just say, I need a compass, I need some direction. What's my checklist of things to do to get over the humps that I need to get over to get my business started? And so some of the different areas is business planning. We're not going to sit down and write a business plan for somebody, but we'll provide guidance and we'll review and we'll look at the different gaps in the business plan and how we fill them. We look at marketing plans, like I said before, the tax and licensing. A lot of what we do as being a CDFI is the financial assessment and the direct lending. And so we do direct lending, and then we also, if we don't do a loan with somebody and they're going to a bank, we can help them prepare their loan application. And so a lot of times banks will require that business plan to be cleaned up, maybe some projections, a startup budget. We can sit and help someone do that and facilitate that financing even if we don't do it ourselves. access to governmental and community financing. If, the city has a facade program or something like that, or a city's got a 2% loan program to help fund capital improvements, we can put them in touch just based on, our relationships with our city partners. Loan packaging for private financing is what I mentioned before. And then referrals is another thing that we do. We don't have the professional expertise to do everything. I'm not an attorney, I'm not a bookkeeper, but we've got access to pro bono legal services through the University of Minnesota, and through bookkeeping resources. We offer up to 10 hours of bookkeeping, either training or, I've gone through a year, I want someone to review my books. We hope to catch everyone on the front end of their business and say, hey, you got to meet with this bookkeeper, and make sure that your books are set up straight so you're not unwinding things, you're paying all the sales tax you need to, you're paying all your employment taxes and things like that. Next slide, please. And then our lending program is what we call non-traditional financing. As Chris mentioned, it's gap financing, but it's also startup financing. It's basically everything where you can't walk into a bank and get a loan. And so we underwrite and we do all the analysis on the front end. We do projections. We really try to figure out how this loan's going to get repaid. But we don't have, like if there's a credit score that's low because there was a problem with, like a bankruptcy due to health, like a medical bill, or, someone went through the housing crisis and had to give up their house, something like that. We look at kind of like how they're doing lately, and so we do a lot of loans that are considered high risk, but by the time we provide the technical advisory, our repayment rate is fairly high. It's, above 95% of the loans that we put out were repaid on. Because of that ongoing technical assistance and the flexibility to work with clients during their tough times. During COVID, we put pause on payments for all of our loans in our portfolio for, I think, 6 months, and then we lowered all of our interest rates down to 7%. And so, for a loan not to go through, something pretty, drastic has to happen, the business closes or, something like that. But we do that startup financing, and then we partner with private community, lenders to do gap financing. Up to $300,000 is our maximum loan amount. Like I said, we're 5 to 7% interest, and so we come in and we work with SBA 7A loans, SBA 504 loans. We basically ask our banking partners to say, what can you get approved, and then what's the gap? And a lot of times it's just that the equity requirement in these deals sap up all all the cash, basically. Like everything's going into the down payment, so they don't have working capital to run the business. And so that's where we can come in and provide a little bit more. So instead of an 80% loan, they might be getting an 85% total loan, or 90%, where the bank does 70 or 80. We come in and do like 5 or 10%, and then the client comes in with the rest. And so they have working capital to actually run their business and ramp up and, go through those first very critical cycles in their business. Startup loans are up to $25,000, typically $50,000. So not huge loans, but, loans to get folks started. And if it gets higher than that, then we'll partner either with, banks or, other nonprofit members that we work with. But those loans are typically 3 to 5 years. We line them up with leases. So if someone's got a 5-year lease, we can make it a 5-year loan. If it's a 3-year lease, we can make it a 3-year loan. We just want to make sure that they've got a space to operate their business during the term of their loan. And then the gap financing I mentioned before, so we don't need to stop on that. So these are just a few examples of the deals that we do. This isn't, I won't get too far into the weeds, but like this startup business that we worked on for a tailoring company, it was someone that had worked in the business for 12 years. She was ready. The bank didn't want to finance a startup. Her credit history wasn't really well developed. She had a little bit of down payment, and so we came in and we did a $25,000 loan. And then we also gave her bookkeeping assistance, legal. We had the attorneys review her lease, and other different contracts that they had that needed to be reviewed, and so that was at no cost to her. And that loan was probably done about 3 or 4 years ago, and so that loan's still going. And then next slide, please. And then the gap financing is just, here's just another example. This is someone had an opportunity to buy the real estate that they were gonna operate their home care assistance company. And so it was about a $1.3 million project. The lead lender could do 50, the SBA 504 program could do 35. And so the down payment requirement at that point was 214,000. And they just didn't have that amount. They came close, but they didn't have that. And so we came in and we did a portion of that 214. And so the result, well, we provided 125 and they were required to come up with the rest of the down payment. And so very favorable terms, 5%. We could amortize out like a normal real estate loan out to 25 years, and then we have a balloon payment at 10 years. But very favorable fees and interest rates to the clients. So in Forest Lake, last year, we met with 9 different clients, and you can kind of see the breakdown of different kind of categories that we served. The different types of business were kind of all over the board. We see a lot of service-related businesses, a lot of retail, and a lot of restaurant type, which is basically food and beverage, anything underneath that. And then the startup versus existing is very common through our whole portfolio, is about 50-50. So really early stage businesses is about half of who we deal with, and then half of the other clients are either unique challenges that they have in their existing business or opportunities to expand their business. I also wanted to kind of highlight the overall, since we started the program, in Washington County, we've seen about 800 different client engagements since we started. And so, and that's kind of just through the years. We've done 50 loans in Washington County since we started. And the dollars that MCCD has put in through direct lending is 2.5 million for those 50 loans. And then the leveraging, so adding the private financing, the bank financing is an additional 16.5 million. And so really the total investment has been about $19 million. And then during COVID, we administered the CARES Act business grants that were put out there during COVID and the state grant programs. And there we did about 900 grants for $11 million in Washington County. So not huge, to $12,500 per grant, pretty much on average, but we were able to get 900 of those out in Washington County during COVID and during its recovery. We've got business advisors that speak different languages too, so we ask that on the client intake form. So if you've got a Spanish-speaking client that wants to see a Spanish-speaking advisor, we can be flexible within the team. We've got some different areas of expertise on the team too. I used to be in banking. We've got some people that were in marketing. We had some people that were former business owners. So if there's like a unique need from the client, then we match people up with who can help them the best. But generally, people just get in touch with us. We have them fill out an intake form. I get notified, and then I reach out to the client. We start our relationship there. And with that, I can pause and answer any questions you might have.
Thank you both for presenting. Commission questions? Jenny?
Yeah. Is any of your financing funded by the federal government in grants or loans?
So we're going through that exercise right now. All of our service contracts with our cities and counties that fund the work that we do is not federal funds, and so those funds are not at any risk or anything like that. The loan funds are a collection of different sources that have not been affected by any executive orders. And so as a CDFI, for example, there's different, programs that provide financing to nonprofits or grants to nonprofits for their loan fund, to support their loan fund. None of those have been cut. SBA loans that we partner with banks, those have not been affected either. But we're keeping a close eye on it. We heard that maybe like the new markets tax credit has been put on pause, but everything that's been affecting the lending environment has been outside of what our direct loan fund is. The other way that we get loan funds is banks invest in nonprofits through loans, and so to get Community Reinvestment Act credits. And so instead of doing a lot of small loans like US Bank or Bank of America, they'll charge an interest rate, but they'll say, we'll lend you $300,000 for 5 years, and then at 3%, and then you go out and lend it at 6%. You get a little spread, and then they can count that as their credit to be a community lender And then we're the actual, we're the ones that are like doing the loans. So whenever we approve a loan, we assign the funding source, and none of those funding sources have been affected by any federal requirements.
Question for Chris. You mentioned the APA work that Washington County might do for somebody. Is any of that a federal grant?
It is 100% federal grant, yep.
What happens
We
there?
are 2 years into it. We have a $600,000 grant for the county. We have about 200,000 left, and we have to spend it between now and September 30th. So we're looking for projects.
Frozen?
Pardon?
Any chance that gets frozen that in the?
Yeah, and there's a possibility, but I think it's, it's been pretty well received. It's really an economic development grant. We're looking at sites that are potential redevelopment sites and doing phase 1 and phase 2 investigations and assessments on those sites. So I think it should be well received, bipartisan.
Other questions?
Yeah, follow-up question for Chris on that. Those funds, and there's a deadline to spend them, are those accessible when there's been a redevelopment identified, or are you proactive in saying, hey, this is an area that's ripe for redevelopment, let's proactively do these studies?
So thank you for that question. It's a good question. So because the EPA grant is looking at assessments, and they want to do sites that are a little bit more challenging or could be challenging, you just don't know if there's something there. If there's already a developer that's making an investment in the site, they're going to say, no, it's too far along. If it's not that far along yet, let's talk, because it's a really simple process. It's a one-page site nomination form. We send it off to our consultant, which is Stantec, the engineering firm that we hired to do the assessments. They send it off to EPA in Chicago, and we get a yes or no on it. But it's a pretty simple process. But if it's not very far along yet, we'd love to take a look at it. We've got some resources that we can maybe put into it. If it's a large enough project where EPA grants aren't going to be a possibility, then maybe we would look at the pre-development finance fund to assist with that opportunity as well. That can also be private investments. It doesn't have to be city match. It could be private match for that pre-development finance fund. So we should talk if you have something in mind. Thank you.
Can I also just note for the record, the EPA grant we have used on the Fenway Business Park parcels. We did a phase 1 environmental assessment last year. And then we have been in discussions with vacant landowners downtown about utilizing the program, just some of those trickier sites that have taken a little while to have some action. Trying to be proactive in the development community of where we might be able to help that landowner gain some more information to maybe spur development in areas that haven't been yet. So,
Other questions for members?
Changing, yeah, question on, I think, Chris, you mentioned there's 18,000 sole proprietors in the county. Did I catch that number right?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
The number of sole proprietors in the county was about 18,000, is that correct?
Yep.
I believe that nationally a large percentage of those are the baby boom, and more so coming into Gen X generations now. Do we have a breakdown of what that looks like for the county?
It's based on census data. That's where that comes from. And I'd love to see if I could dive down a little deeper and get some more information. I just don't have it for you tonight, but I'll certainly see if I can find it. Maybe Deed can help us dig down a little bit deeper and find out. Good question.
The follow-up question to that is, I mean, it sounds like a lot of your work is spent on the startup side of things, but as those baby boomers continue to age, and most business owners, especially those sole proprietors, never sell their business, they just shut down. Is there ever an opportunity in the scope of work you do to be kind of a matchmaker, so to speak?
We have someone coming in that is going to provide training in succession planning. And so as, as the retirements, happen, a lot of times the best people to sell the business to are the people that work there, or a family member. And so we would facilitate that training. We couldn't get as in-depth as the professionals do, but we have resources that can help out with that. We also have under MCCD's umbrella a shared ownership group. And so a worker, based cooperative can buy a business that's in transition as well. And so we've got a director of shared ownership that could provide service, whether it's a co-op or another ownership structure when, those businesses are transitioning. So they don't just stop the business, it continues on. Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions? I have a couple. Chris or Abby, are you able to share the PowerPoint with us, the first portion, Chris's portion? Because some of the,
Yeah, the bullets didn't
I
display
suspect
well.
the font on maybe your computer doesn't exist that he used or something after the meeting.
You certainly will.
Thank you. The second is, Chris, on the commercial market values, you showed a slide that compared counties in comparison from business to housing. Do you have data that would show at the city level, perhaps Forest Lake to other Washington County cities or our neighboring cities in
Mr. Chair,
Chicago?
that is information that is available online, and I can get you that information for Washington County cities. I don't have it at my fingertips, but it's actually based on Minnesota Department of Revenue data that's reported every year to the Department of Revenue, and it is broken down by city.
That would be interesting to see. And then the other question I have, I forget your name,
Tyler.
sir. Thank you. It sounds like you work with a lot of cities around the metro, and you had mentioned in your presentation some component where you work with city programs to help small business. So I imagine you have an understanding to some degree of what cities do to entice business. So is there anything you think that Forest Lake maybe doesn't do that you would suggest or we might benefit from considering or looking at doing to attract more small business?
Yeah, definitely. You know, some cities have loan dollars that they put out there, you know, on a limited basis. And so the city of Minneapolis has kind of a large 2% loan program, for example, where they fund a certain amount or a certain category of project costs that would increase the value of real estate. So like capital improvements and things like that. It's not for working capital. And that's a matching program. So someone like MCCD would come in at, you know, $50,000 and they would match up to $75,000. And we've modeled that in some other cities too, around, I think the city of Roseville, St. Louis Park also have 2% programs too. A lot of the different cities had kind of like micro forgivable loans for the same reason, same purpose. We are also doing non-traditional financing events. So like in different cities where the audience is local bankers, like bankers from Forest Lake, for example, where we would invite someone from the city and then maybe someone from another nonprofit group, just to let folks know like what tools are in the toolbox as far as you know, financing options and things like that. Just because a lot of times the financing doesn't go through just because of a small gap. And so if all the bankers know about us, that's kind of where we get our clients, you know, and so that would be helpful to get some deals, you know, moved forward in Forest Lake. Some folks have done facade grants. Some have done events for certain business owners, you know, just to reach out, do some outreach. And I mean, certainly we're going to be doing some outreach, you know, going to different business owners and just, you know, kind of door knocking, introducing ourselves and letting people know that we're available. But a lot of what we've seen is kind of financing related. So attaching some, you know, kind of beneficial loan onto kind of an existing, you know, startup loan or gap loan that's already in place.
So setting aside Minneapolis, because I think it's a whole different scale and animal than Forest Lake, but maybe comparing us to, I think you mentioned St. Louis Park and Roseville.
Yeah.
How did those cities, or perhaps you know, how do you think those cities would do the initial investment of funding those loans or getting that program launched? Because I can't imagine that's inexpensive.
No, and there's different levels of programming too. I mean, some of it was kind of residual COVID financing that has kind of been recycled into their own kind of earmarked loan fund. Some of the smaller programs that have happened, like one was, it was for like leasehold improvements or capital improvements of up to, I think, $3,000 or $4,000. So really kind of smaller loans. And then if you stayed in business and you did them, you provided receipts, then you could get that loan forgiven. That was a smaller scale one. But it's just kind of a case-by-case basis on where the funding, you know, actually comes from. It's generally, you're right, it's not as large as that the Minneapolis one, but I could check those specifically too and see where those loan funds come from. And then they recycle too, and they kind of become, kind of self-sustaining after a while.
All right, thank you. Are there other questions?
Just a follow-up question. You mentioned bankers in the local area. Do you feel like you've got relationships with the local area banks here in town?
Some of them, yes, some of them, no. So if anyone has referrals, would love to, come up and meet them and let them know about the program too. But
Well, I know you've got a good working relationship with Danette, so I'll work with her and see if we can figure, something to facilitate that.
great, thank you.
Other questions?
To that point, I think it would be good to maybe have some type of almost called a summit or something and bring in some bankers and actual business that, and I know that Chamber's done a little bit of that, but just to introduce us to not, or you don't have relationships with.
Can I just note something for the record? A couple months ago, we brought you a draft brochure. I think I showed it to the EDA that Nanette and Tyler and Chris and I had been working on. Trifold brochure for business services or business outreach that kind of says, here's the city, here's the chamber, here's MCCD, we're here to help. And that should be printed within any day now. And so all 4 organizations will start utilizing that within the community to kind of continue to just do more education on the resources available for businesses within Forest Lake. Again, anything from, your one-man startup to much larger. So they can reach out to any organization and start getting information on any organization.
Abby, I know that this was listed on the agenda as a presentation. So you're not looking for a motion tonight, but
No.
are you looking for any other feedback from the
No,
board?
no, it was my goal to just start bringing in some of these partners to continue to remind the EDA, educate the EDA. We'll have some shifting bodies over the next couple of months and make sure that you folks know too some of the resources that we can rely on to help achieve our mission.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you for presenting.
Thank you.
And moving on to agenda item number 9, regular agenda action items. We have none today, so we can move right down to number 10, discussion, City Council EDA joint workshop. Did you want to kick us off on this, Abby?
Yes, thank you. So the ED is aware we have a number of outstanding items related to the 2024-25 work plan that have yet to be accomplished. I'm just going to pull up your 2024-25 work plan so everybody can be refreshed with it. We have a couple newly returning to the EDA members. You might not be as familiar with the EDA's work plan. I'm going to give you a little bit of update on the work plan. Up for you guys, it should be coming up here in a second. Takes a hot
It's
second.
not, but it's page 11 of the agenda, if you're going to pull it up.
All right. So a few updates to the work plan. We have, when it comes to some of that policy review, you've given direction on the forgivable loan program. Legal counsel's just vetting through the final particulars of that. That loan program should be back for you in March for final approval, which would be available to all, essentially all non-residential, non-institutional properties at your direction. We've got some draft program materials from the county CDA for use of the housing dollars. Again, that's that affordable housing aid dollars from the state, that new state tax that was implemented last year. That program use policies are in their draft format. Staff's reviewing them. If those are approved by the counties, then we can start to look at whether or not we're going to partner with the county for the use of our LAHA dollars. The Southwest area study has been ongoing. We started wetland delineations. We just didn't get it done in the fall, unfortunately, before the snow came. So they've been doing internal work on that. Our engineering firm has been doing internal work on that. We'll resume in the spring with landowner discussions. And then the downtown boat launch, the launch study was presented to you last year. I had a little typo there with 2,204. No action was taken at this time. However, as many of you know, we had quite a bit of damage with the heaving this year. It's really necessitated us to kind of continue those conversations, both with the DNR about the launch, the shoreline stabilization, and working with your boat club about the long-term sustainability of improvements down there. We'll be talking with the new Parks Commission, your boat club, and the DNR this spring and summer to determine next steps there. We'll bring anything forward to the EDA as that comes. So really what's kind of left is some policy review update, downtown priorities, and Headwaters 123. There's a number of outstanding items relating to all three that staff will be seeking some direction on. So staff was seeking to host a joint city council EDA workshop this spring, so either March or early April. We're waiting for our executive director, Mark Stotts, to come on board and just kind of help finalize that agenda. But I wanted to bring this forward to the EDA to see if there are discussion topics that the EDA would like to talk about with the council, as well as any sort of, identifying or just things that we should start talking about for future direction with the EDA and their work plan. I'm kind of opening it up to you. We still have quite a bit of time still to chat, but really kind of seeing what kind of things the EDA might want to talk about with the council.
Members?
Well, there's a couple of items I'd like to see added to that. One is an understanding of what are the parcels of land that Forsyth owns that could be marketed for, not that we're looking to develop it, but, is there a neighboring landowner, is there some land that we should be looking to market for sale? That'd be one, and then the second one would be to revive the conversation around a visitors bureau. I know that Columbus has one. They've had one for a number of years. And I believe they'd probably be interested in partnering with us at some level on that. And so I'd love to see what everybody's appetite is for that before we go into those discussions, but it's something that I'd love to see considered.
Others?
So I think staff's worked, knows the interest on those two Fenway sites. I think that should be part of that initial meeting, also to see the appetite of option and just opportunities that are going to be coming up potentially there.
I will say we'll get a little tricky because those will be open public meetings and we don't necessarily want to get into land sale negotiations, but I think that we definitely can keep the council and the EDA updated on where we're going with some of those.
Desire to really market those more
Yeah.
or not by
And land uses, probably.
Others? You're seeking anything else from us, Abby?
I was not. I think that those are kind of the bigger items I wanted to see to make sure that we really try to address what the EDA wants to focus on. Still a lot in our work plan and trying to make sure that we don't bite off too much, but make sure that we're getting the direction from you and then that the EDA and the council are working together kind of in the same path. It's important for staff, so. I don't have anything else on that matter unless there's anything else from any other commissioner.
Not seen any. We'll move on to agenda number 11, updates, and we're back to you, Abby, for any updates from the city.
The only verbal update I have is I had planned to have a 2024 year-end report for you. I realized that the EDA has never really kind of seen anything like that, so I've been trying to put together a better snapshot for not only the EDA, but also the council, the planning commission, the community of what we did last year, but not just like what we did, what had happened in our development world. Really just start a baseline for the EDA. I'd hoped to have it done for you for distribution today, but I had the flu last week and I wasn't able to finish it. That being said, it sounds like there's some information that you'd like to also potentially see from the county CDA that we can incorporate into it. Some of those things like breakdowns of land areas and things like that to start monitoring year over year. If there's any items you'd like to see like that, if you want to just reach out to me individually, I'd be happy to try to include those in that year-end report for you. It's the only update I have at this time.
Thank you. Oh, of course.
So speaking of that loan program, how would Forest Lake establish? That have to be through the EDA fund, or is it general levy that then gives, or a budget item that we'd have to prepare for to get that
To-
seed money? if
To
you will?
create a revolving loan fund. There'd have to be a seed. The EDA does have a fund balance. Currently, we use that fund balance for our capital improvement program. I'd want to look and talk with, Chris and Nanette, and knowing other community, and Tyler, knowing other communities and what programs worked and what is a good seed starter. But I definitely think that that's something that we can look at, but that would also be another one of those kind of work plan things. It definitely would be a program that we would partner with another agency on. We would not be a good administrator of loans. There's just some things we're good at and some things we should probably stay away from. But I can definitely put that down as another discussion topic.
Any other questions of Abby? All right. We'll move on to Washington County. Chris Eng.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I don't have any additions to my report, but I'd be happy to stand for any questions if you have any.
Any questions? Thank you. And we'll move on to the Forest Lake Chamber of Commerce. Lynette?
Thank you for the opportunity. We are working, I'm going to give you just kind of 3 areas that we're working on that I think you might find of interest. We have just welcomed 2 new businesses just last week that are in Forest Lake, and one is Salon Lujo, and the other is Mike's Discount Foods. So again, it's always great. There's much excitement last week just with both of them, and so both Forest Lake businesses. So I'm going to make it my purpose to tell you the businesses that we're celebrating. I feel like you're interested in that, so I'm going to add that to my report. Event-wise, I do want to mention to you, and you maybe make note of this, but with Career Launch at the Forest Lake Area High Schools, we are doing our member mixer there in April. It's going to be a little bit different and a little bit different timing, and they are inviting the teachers as well, and we will be doing school tours. And so I do want to let you know that, of course, you're invited to attend that if you'd like, and so that will be the first Thursday in April. And so again, just jot that down if that's something that you might think is of interest to you. And the Washington County CDA is helping us sponsor some of some with that event as well. And then the other things that we're working on, of course, Easter is around the corner, so looking at how that's going to work. Big time into the Lakes Area Expo, lots of vendors already signed up, and we got the Easter Bunny and face painting and all kinds of great things to draw people to the event. And then we're already looking ahead to the street dance in July, and a band has been secured for that. So just lots of event-related things that we do. And then you're just electing your positions here. Well, we're looking for board positions, and so this month we'll offer 2 different nominated candidate sessions so that we can spread the word to a select group of folks that have been nominated and fill some board positions that we'll have coming up and open here shortly as well. So with that, any questions? I'll gladly answer if I can.
Questions of the chamber? Any?
It would be nice if maybe in Abby's report or baseline thing, if you could do the annual growth of the businesses. As we've got this contract with the chamber for you to do that, and it would be good if the city had that also.
I'm wondering, Jenny, if it would be better to have numbers as far as the Forest Lake businesses that we, again, because remember we serve 6 communities, and so versus membership,
Yeah,
rather than membership, perhaps it's the businesses that we've had contact with, because I do have that information, and I was thinking about when you were talking about that, that might be a nice number. So I kind of preemptively had already asked for that information, so I can definitely provide that for 2024. Okay.
Other questions?
My question was
Rupp.
just based off of Commissioner Erickson's question on the funding for tourism or whatever we're calling it. I think at one time when I was on the previous end of the EDA, we were talking about that, and the chamber would be kind of intimately involved in that or help fund, or not fund it, but maintain those dollars, or? Oh, and if so, just what the bandwidth would be for the chamber to be involved.
Yeah, we definitely have had this conversation a number of times. I think this is the third time around, but COVID kind of knocked us off track for a bit. Councilman, what are you here? Commissioner. Commissioner Erickson and I did meet early in the year just to take a look at all of the content that I have, you know, and so we took a pretty good look at that. Typically, just to give you a really, really high level, very short, typically, I say typically, but not always, chambers are usually the one to administer, because we have shared funding or shared resources, the chambers are usually the ones that do work with the tourism. And so we've had conversation around it. I did tell Mr. Erickson that I did feel like it was good timing. We've got much more in place now compared to 3 to 4 years ago, and we are looking for hiring as well, and so it just might be, maybe, be a good time. And then too, with Columbus already having interest in having conversation with us, that's really a big key because they're already collecting occupancy tax. And so, had a great conversation around it. We also have lots of questions as well. And so typically the city is the one that does the collection of the funds through an occupancy tax, because I know several of you were not here through the first 2-3 rounds. The city applies for that occupancy tax and collects it, and then it does have the opportunity to keep a small portion of it for their administrative, and then the funds come to the administering body, which is usually through the chamber. And we're trying to also identify some of the things that maybe have not gone so great in some areas as well. So, but definitely. So that was a long answer to your very short question. Is that helpful? Okay.
Any other questions of the chamber? All right, we'll move on to other, and I will just say welcome Mayor Roberts and Councilmember Erickson to the board. I look forward to working with you guys in this capacity. Is there anyone else that wants to give any updates for other?
I could, thank you everyone for your service here. Just a couple updates on our city council member process. So we did, if some of you might know, we had 11 applicants. We brought that down to 5. We did interviews last Thursday of all 5, and we chose unanimously Kevin Miller as the next city council member. He's going to be sworn in here this evening. I think he's going to do a great job. He's been 10 years on the planning commission, and he'll be great council. In that process, we did interview one individual, Jonathan Wright. He's a local business owner, has a business down in Maplewood, who tonight, this evening, we're going to recommend as joint someone at the next meeting. Remember where we lost that person with, I guess it would have been Jeff, yeah. So.
Any other updates? Okay. Seeing none, we're on item number 12, adjourn. And if someone wants to make that motion, I promise I won't hit the gavel as hard as I started the meeting.
Make a motion that we adjourn this evening's meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
The motion is non-debatable. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.